welcome to the all-new, all-different #1 comics podcast. This is episode number 32. I'm your co-host, Dan. Sitting across from me is Bob. Say hello, Bob.
Hello, Bob.
We are a comic book podcast in which every single week we take a look at a brand new first issue comic book, break down the story and art, give it somewhat of a review, and tell you if we think that you should move on to issue number 2 or not. We also talk a little bit of comic book and related news, as well as what's new at comic book shops this and next week. And this week, Bob, we will be taking a very, very dark, deep dive into the all-new #1 from Marvel Comics.
Dark X-Men, pun intended.
Yeah, had to throw that one in there. That's right, kids. Dark X-Men #1. Get ready, because here we go. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. And we are back with episode number 32 of the all-new, all-different #1 comics podcast. Bob, let's talk about news.
There's news?
Well, there's some kind of news. There's, I don't know, discussions. There's probably not actual news. There's nothing newsworthy. There's a huge writer's strike. There's, I don't know, the world is completely on fire because it's 900 degrees every day. There's not really news, unless you want to get into any of that. It's hot. There's some news flash. It's hot.
Pun intended.
Yeah, well, you know. What can I say? Let's talk about the Flash for a second. That's newsworthy, right?
It's always newsworthy.
Yeah, I feel like we could talk about the Flash for, I don't know, eternity.
Yeah, we pretty much could.
So it's reported that the Flash is ending its box office run with $268 million worldwide.
Ooch.
Yeah, officially making it one of the worst comic book flops in comic book movie history.
Ouch.
I would say, like, huge surprise, but, I mean, you look more hurt than surprised.
I mean, I think there's factors going towards that. I myself have not watched the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still not exactly sure if I'm going to watch the movie.
Yeah.
But I have heard from, some people who have watched it and people even comments on social media, that it's not as bad as it's made out to be.
Mm-hmm.
I think two of the biggest factors in why it's such a bomb. First, Ezra Miller.
First and foremost.
I'm sorry,
piece of crap human being. Yeah,
but
that doesn't help.
with everything that was reported with Ezra Miller, I'm sure a good chunk of the population is saying, I'm not going to support this guy or this person.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, the movie doesn't even really count in the grand scheme of where DC is going. I mean, we already know James Gunn is going to reboot DC.
Yeah, and that has to be a huge detriment to something.
Yes.
You're putting it out there, you're, I don't know, running ads for it and stuff like that, and then we're in, unfortunately or fortunately or whatever, however you feel about it, we're in an era where you can't just make like a throwaway movie anymore. It doesn't work like that. It's got to be connected to something, especially if you're pulling from a comic book universe.
Exactly, and that's what I was about to say, especially with comic book movies.
Yeah.
You can't have a standalone comic movie. Everybody knows by now, especially with the Marvel formula.
Unless it's Batman, then you can just, all bets are off the table and you can reboot Batman every 5 seconds. But
this is true. But, as especially as a universe, you got to have things connected.
Yep. Yeah, and it makes more sense because, again, we're coming from comic books. They're connected. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you've got these standalone stories for characters and arcs and stuff like that, but they do connect to the greater universe in some ways. Right. So to just say, I don't know, something like we have pick a character, any character. We have a Hulk book, and it's completely out of continuity. It doesn't reflect anything on the Marvel comic book universe whatsoever. And then on top of that, everything that happens in it doesn't relate to the 616 in any way at all and has no repercussions for anything or whatever, like why would you care? Why would you even go pick up that comic book? What would be the point in reading it?
Right.
So what's the point in seeing this movie? For what purpose?
Right.
Yeah, so it makes a lot of sense that it's done terrible. And then I'm going to throw out there what I've thrown out there since the beginning. You've already covered Ezra Miller, so I won't say anything else about that. And then it's non-connectiveness or non-continuity to whatever else is going on in DC extended movie universe. But it's a Batman movie. I'm sorry. There's just Batman. All anybody cared about was Batman.
Well, there are two different versions of Batman in it.
Yeah, exactly. There's more Batman than Flash in the Flash movie.
Right.
Well, maybe not, but there's
Ezra Miller is pulling double duty.
Sure. But I don't know. There's a good amount of Batman here. And then what did the trailer lead with? Batman. And then what does everybody talk about? Batman. It's a Batman movie. No one cares about the Flash. If it was... Okay, let me ask you this. This made, what did I say, $268 million.
Yes.
If there was no Batman whatsoever, no Michael Keaton, no Ben Affleck, and it was just a Flash movie with Ezra Miller, where do you put it? What do you think it hits?
Worldwide total?
Uh-huh.
Realistically, I would have a hard time believing it would even pass the $200 million mark.
Yeah, so, likewise. I'm going with maybe 125, maybe 150 on the high end.
Because once that trailer hit with, and I even said it. The only reason I was going to see the Flash was Michael Keaton Batman.
yeah, exactly. And that's most people's stand on it. So
because Michael Keaton is maybe hands down the best Batman we have.
Sure. I don't know. I thought Ben Affleck was pretty good. But yeah, sure. Anyways, Michael Keaton, great Batman. I agree with you. We grew up with that Batman. Wonderful, wonderful take on Batman. Back when Batman movies were fun.
And they didn't reboot them every 5 years.
Yeah, exactly. That's a whole other story. Anyways, for right now at least, one of the biggest flops in comic book movie history. And this is... again, so many people were coming out in support of this. Stephen King, Tom Cruise, saying it was the greatest superhero movie ever made.
Yeah.
Maybe you guys need to go back and watch Morbius. I don't know. Could.
So that being said about the Flash, I'm sure you've seen promotional stuff about Blue Beetle.
Oh yeah. I was gonna get into Blue
Beetle. That seems like it has a pretty good marketing budget.
Yeah.
So what do you... being as you know what the Flash made, what hopes do you have for Blue Beetle?
80 million.
Wow, 80,000.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's an art house picture.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know. You think it comes close to 100?
Well, judging by what I've seen on opening estimates, the opening estimates are low.
Oh, yeah.
Low. I mean, they're saying, it could be number one at the box office, but you're talking about beating probably a movie that's been out for 2-3 weeks.
I don't see it ever even... if there's ever a time whenever Barbie is not in the theater anymore, and then... and Oppenheimer's not in the theater, I don't know when those go out of the theater and they're not there anymore, but I imagine... they both probably get a pretty long run, like some kind of extended run or something. And Barbie is one of the hugest movies in the world at this point.
I was gonna say, speaking of Barbie, did you see this coming in any means? That it was gonna be one of the biggest films of all time, box office wise?
I don't know. I think that it would be naive for us to say we didn't see it coming, but no, I didn't have this expectation for it. It looks really good, but I will say this: think of some of the biggest movies of recent memory or whatever.
Right.
Think of Avengers and stuff like that. Think of
think of James Cameron.
Well, sure, but but think of these really big, huge blockbusters and how they have things they're rooted in something from our childhood or something that we hold special or whatever. So
So you think Barbie had a leg up by having an established, IP, so to speak?
well, I can't think of, I don't know when Barbie first came out, but I'm gonna assume like the 50s or
Oh
something.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
like I'm gonna assume the 1950s. Maybe it was a little earlier. I don't know. But like when I think of Barbie, like I'm thinking like 50s, like really big in the 60s, and then obviously when we were kids, like in the like late 80s, early 90s, everybody had a Barbie. So Barbie's huge. Barbie's huge for our generation.
Right.
Even if you didn't play with Barbie, I didn't play with Barbie, whatever, that doesn't matter. Like I had a sister who had 8 million Barbies, the Barbie dream car, the house, like all of that stuff. Do you think for a second that somebody that grew up with that didn't see that trailer and didn't want to go out and see that movie right away?
This is very true. I was actually the same way with the Transformers movie.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not gonna lie. I
Yeah,
saw
exactly.
the first trailer and I'm like, I've got to see this. This is my childhood.
Yep. See, it's exactly that thing. It's the Jurassic Park, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the Titanic, the Barbie, all of that, Avengers, everything, and that's where to circle back around to something like the Flash. I don't think that a lot of people have that with the Flash. People certainly don't have that with Blue Beetle. It's just smaller character, smaller scale there. I don't know. I I'm gonna say 75 to 80. That's where I'm gonna land right now for Blue
Worldwide
Beetle.
total?
Yep. I don't think it goes above that, but I'm not like any type of office expert or anything. So I don't know.
Okay, what if Robert Pattinson makes a cameo? Does that bump it up?
If it's in the trailer, then yes. But if it's just word of mouth, then no.
So
And look, it's DC, so they're putting everything in that trailer because they want to get you in the seats.
that.
So
Is definitely
there's nothing there. There's no cameo. I don't think there's a cameo. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say there's no cameo. Unless the cameo is something like George Lopez is sitting on the couch watching Batman the Animated Series. And that's the cameo.
Yeah, Robert Pattinson isn't that been reported as being like an Elseworlds Batman?
I would not put any weight into that whatsoever. Yeah, of course they say that right this second, but what do you think the odds are that James Gunn does not say that Robert Pattinson is the DC EU's Batman?
So you think it's going to be like one of those? The Shape of Water is our creature from the Black Lagoon.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, 100%.
I could definitely see that happen.
Yeah, that will happen. So there's no way it
Just
doesn't.
as long as the next Robert Pattinson Batman movie does not have a scene where he just walks slowly and the thugs are staring at him. I'm sorry, that was the most un-Batman worst scene ever.
Look, I'm
to
not
quote comic book guy from The Simpsons.
I'm not gonna get into it right now because we already know how many times I've not seen this movie. So I'll leave it at that and know that I've completely given up. And actually, if I found out right now that Robert Pattinson had a cameo in Blue Beetle, it would be boycotted for me. I would never even try to watch it.
I was gonna say, wouldn't that be the final nail in the coffin?
Absolutely.
Of you actually seeing this movie?
Yeah, absolutely. But I am seeing that people are coming out and saying that it's really like an early 2000s like superhero origin type of movie, like it does that formula.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna say this, Bob. I don't know if I'm gonna bring up Morbius again because do you remember when that was coming out and that's what everyone was saying about Morbius? And obviously people didn't like that very much. So I don't know. This will be very interesting to see. I wish it all the best luck that it can get, but does it tie into anything at all? Is it just a standalone? Do people know or care who Blue Beetle is? Is George Lopez going to sell a ticket for a superhero movie? I don't know. I think it has a lot going against it, is all I can say. But it does right now, or when I was making notes before you got over, I looked at the Rotten Tomatoes for it. There's 128 critic reviews in there, which means right now it's sitting at a 79. When I first looked up the article, when they were just starting to trickle in, it was at like an 88. So it's trending down quite a bit. Yeah.
And when did you first look at the article compared to when When you just saw it at 79.
Like 4 hours or something.
Oh.
Yeah, it's not looking too great, but
No. If it's going down 9% in 4 hours,
mm-hmm.
yeah, by opening night,
Yeah, I don't see it going too great.
But I mean, then again, for the most part, you shouldn't pay attention to the critic score.
Yeah,
on
absolutely.
Tomatoes.
Yeah,
go by the
course.
audience score.
Yeah.
If people are actually seeing it and what they think about it.
Yes, yeah, 100%. That's always right. I mean, we know what movie critics are. You know, they want to see the next Scorsese movie with Robert De Niro and what's that? I can't think of his name now.
But you know.
No, what's the other one? Leonardo DiCaprio. That's anything they're in. You know, they're going to give the highest score to.
That's true.
Pretentious, artsy movie with.
And we know how much
dialogue.
you love Martin Scorsese films.
Yes, I mean I'm sure like the Godfather or something is like what critics rate number one. So we'll.
Oh, that's always on the. That's always
yeah, exactly. That and Citizen Kane. I mean, 2 movies I can't even sit through. So yeah, whatever. Throw the Batman up there.
They are slower burns,
yeah.
but I mean I gotta say I've never really seen either one of them. I mean I've seen enough of The Godfather where it's like it's just. I mean I could see the appeal to it. It's just not my kind of. It's just not my kind of movie.
Yeah, 100% agree.
It's just a little too, And of course, Scorsese films, everybody knows they're driven by dialogue.
Yeah. Definitely. Whatever. I hope Blue Beetle does good. We'll see what happens. Maybe by the end of this episode, I'll take a look at the Rotten Tomatoes score again and see where it is then.
Yeah, and don't get us wrong by us having this conversation. We want DC to do good.
Yeah, of course.
Unfortunately, it hasn't happened yet, and their track record suggests that it's not going to work. But, I mean, maybe James Gunn can be the one to turn it around. I mean...
Maybe. I just want them to come up with a better model. I think that's my problem. It's so all over the place. I don't want it to be the MCU because it's not going to be, and that's even now.
Not.
Yeah, even now the MCU is starting to fall apart. So whatever. But it's not that it needs to be that. It's just there's nothing. It's just random movies thrown at the wall, and let's see what sticks. And then every single time one comes out, they're like, well, never mind. This turns around the whole thing, and then it's just like, who's not sick of hearing that? Like, how do you hear that and then defend that over and over again? Like, all right, well, this is the big one. Now they're back on track. That's said every single time a DC movie comes out,
right.
and historically not once has that done anything. So
right.
I wish them all the best. You wish them all the best, but
I do.
Right now it's not even close to happening. So I don't think Blue Beetle's going to be the one to turn that around. But if it is, then awesome for them. I mean, I guess nobody really thought that Iron Man was going to build the Marvel Cinematic Universe either, and it did. So. You never know what can happen.
That is true, and nobody thought anything about Guardians of the Galaxy when that was first announced.
Exactly.
And James Gunn took those obscure characters and look what he did with those. So maybe he can do the same with Blue Beetle.
Sure. I don't think he has any hand in it, but yeah, sure. Either way, wish them all the best. Superman Legacy. Hopefully it's good. We'll see what happens. In other news. Bob, I don't know if you watched this. I meant to send you like a text or something earlier to tell you to give it a watch, but have you seen the Scott Pilgrim Takes Off trailer? Netflix animated trailer for Scott Pilgrim?
No, I have not.
No? Okay. Well, I'll just talk about it for a second. There's not much news there. It's just, it's a teaser. Came out. It basically shows Scott's band, Sex Bomb, I think? Sex Bomb. Okay, yeah. And they're kind of playing, and then intercut through that as Scott Pilgrim fighting villains or whatever. It's got a cool look to it, and it looks like most of the cast is back for the voice casting. Yeah, Michael Cera is definitely in the role, and a lot
Hopefully Mary Elizabeth Winstead isn't busy with her new Star Wars outlet.
Well, you never know, but But yeah, it sounds like a lot of fun. It looks really cool. It's got a cool look to it, a very anime look and everything. The one thing I will say about it that I didn't like was the music actually sucked. Like it wasn't
Really?
good. I really liked the music in the live action movie.
Right.
It was good. It sounded like coming from somebody who plays music and stuff like that, like it sounded like a high school, post high school band. Like it sounded like people playing those instruments and everything. And this just didn't sound like that. This sounded weird. Like the vocals were like really weird. It didn't sound like what I expected from that. So it was a little strange, but a fun trailer nonetheless. I suggest everybody check, or teaser. I suggest everybody check that out. Sorry.
I'm definitely gonna have to check that out because I love the movie.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I love that movie too. It's very, very cool. The last little bit of news that I want to talk about, it's not really news. It's more of, I don't know, you come up with your own thing, whatever you think this is. But I kind of want to plug something. It's not something that I'm involved in. It's not something we're being paid to talk about or anything like that, because sadly we're not being paid to do anything right now. But,
Right.
but I listened to a podcast called X Reads. It's an X-Men podcast, of course. Very, very cool podcast. Actually, the creators of that podcast have decided to put on an X-Men convention. And
Nice.
they got this really, really cool mansion that they're hosting it in. And it sounds
Very
amazing.
Cool,
And yeah,
very cool.
yeah, and tickets are on sale right now, and it's let me look here. It's like the middle of September, I think 16th and 17th. I'll get those dates for you in 1 second, but I just want to like explain what it is really quick because it's really cool. It's called the Uncanny Experience, and it's a 2-day immersive fandom event created by fans for fans who desire to be mutant and proud. Their mission is to transport you to the universe of mutant kind, build community, and give platform to the creators, artists, and actors of the X-Men universe to interact and educate attendees. The Uncanny Experience, an event produced by Giant Size Production, is a fan convention with immersive elements held at the Minneapolis Club in Minnesota. They provide participants with quality entertainment and immersive experience like none other, in the form of panels, vendor booths, cosplay, fan activities, live entertainment, and celebrity and creator signings. And yeah, there's, like I said, it's put on by like podcasters. The two guys from X Reads, another guy from House of X podcast, and then there's a few other people in here who had a hand in it. And I just kind of want to tell you like what you can expect whenever you go there, because this is really, really awesome. Like they basically, like, you go for the 2 days or just a day or whatever. Like you kind of go to like each little booth or whatever they have going on. You kind of get like a report card type of thing, and then you like graduate from the Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters. Yeah, and
cool.
And it's really cool. And they have like all these. They have like sponsored cosplayers like doing each different X-Men and stuff like that. And they have huge guests there. They have Chris Claremont's going to be there. They have like all of the voices of the X-Men animated series cartoon.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, really, really cool stuff. Yeah, just looks really, really awesome. And like I said, Chris Claremont's going to be there. So if you're anywhere near Minneapolis, definitely check that out. I wish I was. There's going to be somebody cosplaying as Dazzler doing like a whole concert. Like, it just sounds so cool. So
Nice.
Yeah, I was really stoked when I heard about it. So I really wanted to plug it a little bit on our show here, and that is September 16th and 17th from 10 a.m. till 5 p.m. That is in Minneapolis, Minnesota. So if any of you guys happen to be from or near there, or if a short flight's not bad, or drive over or whatever, or if you're like insanely rich and you live on like in Australia or something, you don't care that you have to burn thousands of dollars on a plane ticket, then
Private jet.
yeah, then go do it, because I don't know, it just sounds really cool, and I definitely suggest you guys check that out. Again, we're not in any way, we don't know these people or anything, so we're not sponsored, we're not being paid to say this, but it just sounded and looked really cool. You can check out the uncannyexperience.com to check out more about that, but just again, being a huge X-Men fan, this is on an X-Men episode,
Yes.
So I thought I'd plug that for those guys. So
Too bad they couldn't come further down south.
yeah, exactly. So that gives me an idea, Bob. We narrow our focus a little bit and then we create a convention of our own, and we do it here in town. Done. We just need like a cool angle, like maybe we do like a lockjaw convention or something, and everybody brings their dogs to it. You never know.
Man thing convention.
Oh God, yeah, just swamp creatures everywhere. But like, you got to be authentic, and you got to like put mud all over yourself and just drag it to the place. And like you're getting like your Man Thing comic book signed, but like mud is like dripping all over the cover and everything. I really like that. Speaking of Bob, this is off air, but I mean it's on air. But I picked up the Werewolf by Night Ted Funko Pop. Notice it doesn't say Man Thing anywhere, just Ted. But it's a bobblehead too, so
very cool.
I had to pick that up from our local comic book shop this past week. So
yes, and I know nobody can see, but that's a very cool looking pop.
Yeah, super awesome. So really excited about that. Bob, we're going to take a quick break, and we will be back in one moment. And we are back with the all-new, all-different #1 Comics Podcast, episode number 32. Again, huge number there, 32, wow. Let's talk about some new comic books that dropped in local comic book shops this very week. There's still time. It's only we're recording this Friday morning, so I don't know, some of these might still be at your local comic book shop. Give it a shot, try it out, send them an email, see if you can get your hands on something.
The incentives, probably not.
Well, yeah, most likely not. But hey, you never know. I mean, I guess you could hit the secondhand market and pay like 4 or 5 times as much. Right. That's what you're into. From Dynamite Comics, we got a new #1 in the Disney Villains line. We got Hades, Disney Villains Hades #1. Of course, the Hercules villain. Really, really cool covers on that thing. Of course, there's always cool covers. Sadly, we also got I can't remember, it was issue 3 or 4. I'm going to say 4. Number 4 of Solis Maleficent out this week, and there were like no copies at our local comic book shop, like none whatsoever. So I'm thinking they got damaged because there's usually a lot of covers for all of those. So I had to order a copy, but I do have a copy on the way because I'm excited to continue to follow that because it's actually just so good. Like me and you talked about this before. I don't normally pick up Dynamite comics because they can be seen as a certain thing that I won't get into here, But yeah, when I read Maleficent and when we talked to So and everything, like, just that's such a good book. It's really, really good. So I'm really sad that I wasn't able to read that yet. But don't worry, it's coming, and I will be reading it. From Image Comics, we got the Cole #1. This is like a huge book this week. Kelly Thompson. I don't know. People are comparing it to like a modern day like Goonies type of story. I don't really see that when I read the book. But I love what I read. It was really, really, really fun, really exciting story. Very focused. Kind of gives you like a little bit of character build-up and backstory. And then you get right into the action, and then you get left on this insane cliffhanger that just anybody who sees the last page, is absolutely going to go add it to their pull list. So it's done the marketing itself already in the book, but really, really cool. I'm thinking of doing a little bonus episode on that one this week probably. So I don't know, maybe look forward to that, but yeah, really cool book. I just, the second I read it, I was like, well, shit, I want to talk about this with people, but yeah, really cool. From DC Comics, we got Batman Superman World's Finest issue number 18. This has the origin of Batman and Superman's first meeting, if that's of any interest to you. Look, I'm not going to lie. I sound like a hater. I don't know why it would be, but but if that's your thing, then yeah, it's out there.
Here, kids, here's how Superman and Batman met.
Oh, wow.
I'm sure I'm sure there was kryptonite involved.
No, probably. Or a bat or something. I don't know. Crypto bat. We got Harley Quinn, Black, White, and Redder. You know what? I forgot to write down the issue number, so I think it was 4. But this has the Legion of Dominals. Dominals? I don't know how you say that. Dominals? Yeah. I don't know.
Like it's Pet Avengers.
Yeah, it's fun. It's Harley Quinn. It's silly. It's going to be silly.
Yeah.
Whatever. Over to Marvel Comics, we got Death of Venomverse. Number 2, with the first appearance of Venom Boy, or look on the cover it says Kid Venom, and I think that that's a better name, especially since Spider Boy just came out. Like, I don't think we should shadow it that much, but nonetheless, a cool looking character. Probably not as much staying power as Spider Boy, but it's still fun. It's from Bob's good friend Colin Bunn, so cool book. Also has a first appearance of Chaos Engine as well as the Symbiote 6. So I don't know, jam packed full of first appearances there. So maybe check that one out.
The Symbiote 6, who, for anybody who didn't pick up the first issue,
Yeah,
some really cool designs.
man,
Especially the Craven symbiote.
dude, that book is so brutal and like, yeah,
Yes.
that's insane, man. That book, like, I feel like it's not even like a fever dream, like it's like a fever nightmare. Like, have you ever had a fever dream before?
I mean, it is a fever nightmare.
Yeah, absolutely.
Involving carnage.
Yeah, like, how do you
Carnage
level that
with-
up, you know? Like,
Carnage without a human host.
yeah, it's intense. I definitely suggest everyone check that book out.
we thought Cletus Cassidy Carnage was corrupted and sick and twisted.
Yeah.
But the Carnage symbiote without Cletus Cassidy, that may be even worse.
Yeah, this is a terrifying book. But I like that, Bob. I kind of think that I'm gonna try to find a way to write something called Fever Nightmare and get into that. Maybe I'll hit Stephen King up and see if he can coach me a little bit. But we also got What If Dark Moon Knight one shot, and this one is really, really cool. This has first appearance of Luminary, and this is written by Erica Schultz, who I just did an interview with for the podcast. A really, really cool interview where Erica talks about Hallows Eve and talks about this one shot and Daredevil and what she has coming up and everything. Erica Schultz, really, really cool, really, really good writer. If you've been reading Hallows Eve, which I mean, if you haven't, I'm sorry. Go pick up some Hallows Eve. That amazing. But this book is really, really cool. This is like what you want in a What If, and then What If Dark on top of that. Like a very, very good book. So definitely check that out. That interview will be attached to an upcoming episode. I'm just not sure which one yet. We're a little backlogged on interviews. I think we have about 6 in the pipeline that have got to go out, and I don't want to do another all interview episode.
Right.
So yeah, that's probably a little bit down the line, but definitely look forward to that.
I can't imagine a Moon Knight issue getting any darker, because Moon Knight inherently himself is a darker character.
Oh, you haven't met Erica Schultz yet then. That's all I can say.
Okay.
Yeah. Expand your mind. She could do things. We got Daredevil issue number 14, and that's the end of this run.
Wow, only 14?
Yeah, that's it. So end of this run. But like I said, Erica Schultz is coming up on some Daredevil stuff. She's doing Gang War. There's cool stuff coming up. We got Alpha Flight Fall of X. This has the introduction of the Box Sentinels program. I don't know. I haven't read it yet. I'm not sure what that is, but that's what the solicit says. So,
all right.
We have Marvel Voices X-Men. So one of these Marvel Voices books, but focused on X-Men. We got Spider-Man number 11. Dives more into Spider-Boy's origin. Got an Uncanny Avengers Fall of X one shot, or number 1. I don't think it's a one shot. This has new Avengers Unity Squad roster. Captain America, Rogue, Deadpool, Quicksilver, Psylocke, Monet. So I don't know. That's a team of Uncanny Avengers, right?
Yeah, that is. It's kind of along the same lines of how the last volume of Uncanny Avengers, how that team ended, because that team also had Captain America, Deadpool, Rogue.
Yeah.
I can't remember if it had, I think Scarlet Witch was on there, so I think the core ones are still there with, and of course, being a team book, it's going to have an ever-changing roster as the series goes.
Yeah. This will be cool. I haven't read it yet, but I am excited to read it, and look, I'm excited to see Psylocke anytime. I think that I always say that anytime Psylocke comes up. Really cool character. From Scout Comics, we got Orson Welles' Warrior of the Worlds, #1. I don't know. Go read the solicit. It's an insane sounding book, but yeah, that's coming out.
Yeah,
or it came out.
Just looking at the title,
Yeah.
I thought to myself, boy, this is gonna be a weird book.
What? Yeah. And then wrapping us up for books this week from IDW, we got Godzilla War for Humanity. For Humanity. Godzilla, the great protector of humanity in this book. And Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Splintered Fate #1, which is a tie-in to the Apple Arcade game. So, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, really cool. So I would strongly suggest picking that up, but I am a Turtles fan myself, so yeah, check that out. Those are some of the new books that came out this week. Again, you still got time to go pick them up, but if I can, I strongly suggest you go pick up the Cull #1. You're going to want to get that one on the ground floor, and What If Dark, Moon Knight #1. Again, 2 books that you're really going to want to have in your collection, if I do say so myself. So we'll be right back after this quick break. Welcome back to episode number 32 of the all-new, all-different #1 Comics podcast. It is that time. We are going to be going over our book, our pick of the week, which is Dark X-Men #1, written by the amazing Steve Foxe. But let's get into the synopsis of the book really quick. Dark X-Men #1. Welcome to the Dark X-Men. Hope the world survives the experience. That is a tagline there, might I add. Following the explosive events of the Hellfire Gala, Madeline Pryor realizes the world needs X-Men now more than ever. Havoc and Gambit have served on the team before, but never one that looks like this. And how does Gimmick, breakout star of Marvel Voices Pride, fall under the Goblin Queen's sway? Find out in the most horrific installment of the X-Men saga yet. So that is their synopsis for the book on Marvel's site. Pretty, a lot to live up to, I guess. That's to say that this is the most horrific installment of the X-Men saga yet. That's a claim, you know?
That's definitely saying something considering the history of the X-Men.
Yeah, for sure. So let me read you my synopsis really quick and see if we agree here. Dark X-Men #1 opens with Madeline Pryor in her infernal realm of power, Limbo. But then she wakes up at the Limbo Embassy in New York 10 weeks after the fall, next to Alex Summers, a.k.a. Havoc, as they look out the window of the embassy to see a large group of human protesters. As Alex follows Madeline through the embassy, passing a bunch of D-list mutants, basically, he explains that he can't lose her like he did everyone else that he ever cared about in the Hellfire Gala by picking a fight with the entire world. Madeline leads Alex to her Mercy Crown, and holy shit, Bob, the Mercy Crown. And the Mercy Crown it's like Cerebro. It's like a demonic Cerebro, as kind of Alex puts it.
That's the best way to put it.
Yeah, and that's a scene. That's an intense, cool scene. Next we see Queens later that evening. A dad reports his daughter's friend as a mutant to the I forget what they're called there, but the mutant authorities or whatever. The friend is captured and taken to an armored car to... All right, help me again with the re-education camp. I forgot the name of it here. Orcus?
Orcus.
Okay, Orcus, sorry. Taken in an armored car to Orcus re-education camp, where the Dark X-Men show up to free her. When they do, Albert shows up. Bob, Albert. Yes, that Albert. That Wolverine doppelganger, yes. Albert. So for anybody who doesn't know, I feel like I should be a comic book that has that little like asterisk and then tells you to read issue whatever. I remember Albert having like a pretty heavy presence in like the Wolverine solo series. I can't remember any exact issue numbers off the top of my head though.
So if you want to know, most likely the villain in the movie Logan was Albert.
Yeah, or at the very least heavily inspired by.
Yes.
So Albert then stabs Archangel through the stomach with his claws, and then sorry. Sorry, it blows my mind. Like I'm just replaying that scene in my head right there with the claws just going through, and then after that we see again this name Orcus. Okay, Orcus incident report stating that 6 mutants were freed, and it's approving a Stark Sentinel deployment. Next up, the rest of the team shows up, including Madeline, Alex, and Azrael. Madeline instructs the team to spare no mercy, and that upsets Alex. And then we see a really cool panel of a car eating someone, and Albert then claws Alex through the throat, and Maddie, of course, becomes very upset and sets everyone on fire. And
because why not?
yeah, I mean, well, it makes you think why the hell she just didn't do that in the first place. But I guess maybe she needed to get upset. The team then teleports home. Archangel stays behind because he's kind of knocked out from being stabbed in the stomach or whatever. And we see him at an Orcus black site, and then there at the end of this first story, we see a demonized, a goblinized Maddie there at the end, and that's just, again, such an intense scene. Some of the way that this stuff is depicted here in the book is just crazy. We then get like a second story. I don't want to call it a backup, but I mean it's pretty much a backup. It's called Do You Love Me? And it's a way less bloody, not action-heavy story. It's set a week after the foundation of the Limbo Embassy. The story finds Havoc trying to manage crises for Madeline in her absence, and he starts interviewing petitioners for the asylum and sorting out legal issues with She-Hulk. And this is all while trying to get some alone time with Madeline as she fends off a demonic rebellion. So that's kind of what happens in that little backup story. I don't mean to discount that backup story, but it's just after going through everything so intense that happened in the first story.
It just doesn't mesh, is what you're saying.
Yeah. And anyways, let's just get back into our review here. Let's this one's so intense, it's so hard to talk about. A lot happens, and to think that let me say this right up top, to take something like what happens in the front half of this book, which is heavy, and then have a little second backup story in there, I think it was a really weird choice. I'm not sure what it was done for. I'm not gonna fault it for that, but I'm not too sure. I think maybe, in my opinion, I would have liked to spend a little bit more time with maybe Gimmick or what was going on with her. Mm-hmm. Maybe we could have dipped in and out of that story a little bit more, give it a few more pages or something. I'm just not sure, but everything fit well here, and it was fun. And then that backup was fun, but it's just the tone, man, the tone.
Right.
It just kind of upsets the tone a little bit for me.
Yeah, it was just so different.
Yeah, very, very different. But yeah, let's. I think what we need to do, Bob, is we're just going to talk about this front end story. Mm-hmm. I don't think there's really any need for us to get into the back end. Let's just say this: it was fun. It had a completely different tone. So for us to sit here and go through it that way would kind of be like the DC Silent Tales episode that we did,
right,
where everything had such a different tone. It was talking about different stories, and I don't want to do that. I don't want to sit here and break it up into 2 different comics, because that's essentially what it is. Mm-hmm. So let's focus on only the front half, and maybe if we want to circle back around, if we have enough time, we'll touch on the art on the second half, because that's the only difference. But let's talk about this first story arc here.
Easy for you to say.
Yeah, apparently. Let's talk about the story beats, the narrative, the dialogue, the world building, all of that stuff that we talk about here on our lovely, all new, all different #1 comics podcast. So how about the story beats? How did you feel this went from A to B and all of that?
Oh, the beats flowed.
Dude, let me come out and say one thing that's gonna be interesting. Not to you or me, but Steve Foxe is such a good and intelligent writer. He doesn't dumb anything down, and he also doesn't give too much exposition, which is something that you and I hate. So he doesn't cross over into that territory. He really like trusts his artist to tell that story, but gives like a really compelling narrative and stuff throughout with the storytelling.
Right.
But I will say this, and this is probably something I shouldn't bring up on the podcast, but I'm going to do it anyways.
Okay.
While researching this book and before it came out and everything, you know, I like to look up like articles or YouTube videos or whatever. So there was some guy, and I'll leave the channel unnamed, you know, because there's no point in doing all of that. But there was some guy who was at the top of the list on YouTube talking about this whole event, Fall of X, and then, of course, this book being announced and whatever. So when he talked about the event, he was pretty negative on it. Whatever, I get it. Some people are haters of certain things. I don't care. When he got into the individual teams announced for things and he started talking about Steve Foxe, like, and he had a co-host on, the first thing this guy said was, why would Marvel ever hire Steve Foxe to do anything? He is a terrible writer. He can't write this and this. And I was like, hold on, wait a second. Am I in some kind of weird alternate universe? Like, are we talking about the same Steve Foxe? Because, dude, did you not read All Eight Eyes? Like, what are you talking about, first of all, right now?
Right.
But either way, I was just like, holy crap. And then and the reason that I bring this up is as I went on, I noticed that he was really negative on the Iceman book that also got announced, and Steve Orlando and stuff like that. And I was like, man, I wonder why. What is going on with this dude? And then I noticed him start to say things like kind of call out things that seemed really odd to me, like calling somebody a lesbian and stuff like that. And then I looked at his channel description, and the number one thing said, blah, blah, blah is a Christian family, blah. And I was like, oh, okay, this is what it is. He doesn't like Steve Foxe because he's gay. Okay, I get it. But I was like, the reason that I point that out is, I mean, if you've ever read anything by Steve Foxe, like, to sit there and say that the dude is not a good storyteller is like, he's the freaking editor for Department of Truth and World Tree, like, for one thing. And then if that doesn't say anything to you, like I said, All Eight Eyes, like, excuse me, have you not read All Eight Eyes? That's probably one of the most compelling examples of storytelling that I can think of in recent memory. But yeah, just so interesting that some of our population thinks that way. And some of us, don't like things just right off the bat because of certain caveats. But
unfortunately, that's just a biased opinion.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I mean, he's not even talking about the writing
exactly.
at that point.
Yeah.
So, and I don't want to get into that.
Yeah,
because I definitely have my own opinions on that, and I want to keep this podcast as PG as possible.
Nothing, not important for us to get into because I think it's probably pretty well known our opinions. But I will say just to circle back around, anybody who could say that Steve Foxe is not a phenomenal writer has a personal problem with Steve Foxe. It doesn't have anything to do with his merit as a writer because that is obviously all over the wall. So, really, really good writer. But yeah, Steve Foxe going from beat to beat here, like interweaving the storyline of Madeline and Alex and the embassy, and then what happens here with Gimmick, and then assembling the team on the battlefield. Holy shit, dude! It's such a good dynamic, such cool story beats. Really, really top tier level writing on this.
And this isn't tied into the beats at all. But I mean, the only reason I might have had a hiccup is because I just am not really familiar with recent X-Men history. So some of the especially some of these characters, it's gonna be like, who's this?
That's kind of what I like about it too, though, because he does like a good balance of existing X-Men characters that we all know and love, and then takes some deep cuts too. But like it's not fan service, but he's playing to his audience. He's of course wants you to be invested in Fall of X. He's working for Marvel, writing for X-Men right now, so why wouldn't you want to tie all that in? But really cool, and Gimmick is a cool new character from Marvel Voices Pride. Just I don't know, really, really cool stuff here. So how about the narrative? How about this overarching narrative of what's going on here? Again, we see what the plot of this book is. It's Madeline overseeing this embassy, kind of in charge of this embassy. And then she's kind of the leader of this new X-Men team, this very, very dark X-Men team that lives up to its title and is very dark. And they go on this mission to save this kid. And kind of what's happening in the backup of that is she's kind of making her own dark Cerebro, demonic Cerebro, and
right.
she's the stand-in for the demonic Professor X or whatever to
right.
find and, I don't know, help save these mutants or whatever. So after what happened at the Hellfire Gala and everything. So I don't know, really, really cool narrative to me. I just think this is like if you are studying to be a writer or anything, a screenwriter, a script writer, somebody who wants to write a book or anything, like definitely study what Steve Foxe is doing, because he just knows how to tell such a compelling story, like in a way that I wouldn't think of, just really, really cool, really good writing here. How about the dialogue, Bob? What'd you think about the dialogue? I know you're pretty familiar with some of these characters, you know the voices, Archangel of Alex Summers, of Madeline Pryor, maybe Albert. I don't know. He doesn't really get any dialogue here that I can think of, but
he gets the android.
He's got the little beeps and stuff going on, but that sounded like him, right?
And I mean, as long as you keep Gambit sounding like Gambit.
Oh yeah, Gambit definitely sounds like
happy.
Gambit here. Yeah, absolutely. He nails Gambit's voice. That's for sure. But yeah, everybody's got a cool voice here. Madeline especially. Madeline and Alex have the bulk of dialogue in this for the most part, and I would say Gambit, probably next. But
Madeline definitely has the take no prisoners, just kind of I'm the leader attitude about her.
Dude, and this is what I think is really cool, because I want to see more of Madeline as, this team leader. Like, it's such a cool place for her to be. She's very stern. She's very focused. And, regardless of what's going on in somebody else's opinion or whatever, she's going to do what she has to do.
You might agree with me here. You might not disagree with me, but does this Madeline Pryor not remind you of early Emma Frost?
Yeah, for sure. Oh yeah, I could definitely see that. Man, I don't know. The way that Steve is able to tap into each one of these characters is really profound. They're not, blank on a comic book page. There's so much personality behind each one of these characters here. So then how about the world building, Bob? And this is where I'm going to give you my opinion first. This is where everything excels to like the highest level on the world building here. This is just in a world, like we were talking about Death of Venomverse earlier, in the world that Colin Bunn built, and that nightmarish fever dream nightmare, whatever. This does the same thing for me. This has like such hellscapes going on, and like whenever they're fighting the what are they called again? The Orcus. I'll never remember the name of that. But yeah, whenever they're out there like fighting them and everything, and the embassy, and oh man, the world building is so good here.
Well, I mean, just look in the first panel where Limbo. I mean, you've got a castle on a mountain with eyeballs.
Yeah,
and on the mountain, and a headless guy with a pike.
Yeah, that's death.
Or an axe.
Bob, that's death. That's the Marvel embodiment of death. Oh, that guy. The headless one. Okay.
Yes, the headless.
I thought you were talking about death down there.
No.
Yeah, the headless guy is really cool. And then death is in here, and also there's a cool Christmas tree thing. But yeah, look, we got death, we got a headless dude, we got eyeballs, we got a man-eating car. This book has something for everybody in it.
Right.
Really.
I mean, even though it's not his art, I mean, it's definitely Frank Frazetta-esque.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, got to be inspired by really, really cool looking stuff. How about we break down the art? And I did forget to do something at the beginning of this breakdown. I always credit the creators and talk about some of their backstory and stuff.
Right.
I accidentally skipped it, so I'm not going to go back and do it now. I think that that would be a little stupid. But again, know that Steve Foxe we have talked about at length before. We've had him on the show. We've talked about lots of stuff that he did. If you want to go back and take a deep dive into what Steve Foxe has done, go back and check out our episode on Steve Foxe. And then we have the illustrator here, Jonas Shaw. Hold on. Let me not speculate his name without having it in front of me. Jonas Scharf. Scharf?
Sharp.
Okay, Scharf. Jonas Scharf, yeah. So Jonas Scharf, the reason that I don't even feel any need to sit here and explain him to you is because, for one, if you didn't read Bone Parish from, like, I think 2018, 2019, something like that, the Boom Studios book that was written by Colin Bunn, right? I believe.
Yes.
Yeah, Colin Bunn was on that. Okay, yeah. So that's Colin Bunn and Jonas Scharf there. Top level on the art. Such a good artist. And then also did Basilisk for Boom Studios. Also done some stuff for Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, Avengers of the Wastelands. There's plenty of things that Jonas Scharf has done. But, first and foremost, if you've not read Bone Parish, absolutely do yourself a favor and go out and read Bone Parish. It is phenomenal book that everyone should read. But let's get into the art then. Bob, what about the characters? What about the way that Jonas does these characters here? Again, you have some of your favorites that you know and love: Madeline Pryor, Alex Summers, and you have some newcomers, Gimmick. You have Maggot. It's all over the place. So, what did you think about these characters?
Well, I like the characters because my biggest thing with characters is as long as they look individualistic and don't all look the same, and I mean these are drawn like the characters I remember.
Yeah, and I really like the way that that Jonas does faces here. Like there's a level of detail on the faces that I really like. I feel like I can really kind of hone into what the characters are saying or thinking in the individual panels and stuff like that based on the expressions of their faces, and they're not flat at all, which has to be like a challenge. I would say, if anything, there's like not that same level of consistency to the characters' faces that I'm used to seeing in comics. I think it's a sacrifice made for all the personality that's pumped into the faces.
Right.
I think I'm fine with the sacrifice. I love the way that this is depicted, and I think that it's done really, really well. So I'm willing to give up that consistency to see what's on page here. But that is like a critique that I can give for it. If I need to give a critique, which is what we're here for. So so I don't mind giving one, but let me tell you, that does not take away from anything here. This art, this character design is phenomenal. Like really, really, really good stuff. What about the locations, Bob? I talked about the locations in the world building some. We've got the embassy. We've got the kind of battlegrounds that all of this is taking place at.
Right. We've got Limbo.
Yeah, we have Limbo there at the beginning. So what do you think about these locations art-wise?
The locations for me, I definitely love the depiction of Limbo. That's the standout for me. Yeah,
Limbo looks great. Everything looks great here. There's a lot of very fleshed out locations. They look wonderful. They're done really well. Let's get into the backgrounds then. I don't know, the backgrounds kind of, we do this sometimes, but they kind of tie in with the locations a little bit. But there's good background here that doesn't overshadow what's going on. Now, it's not as lived in as some other stuff that we like a lot, but it's a little more vague. It's a little more focused on what's on the foreground, which I'm okay with. But again, to critique it a little bit, that's one thing that I could say. The backgrounds do look phenomenal, though.
To me, I mean, the backgrounds are still, detailed enough without, taking away from what's going on the forefront.
Yeah, absolutely. Just some really, really nice stuff in this book, though. Last up, what about colors? The colorist on this book being Frank Martin. Bob, I'll let you start. What you think about the colors here?
The colors The colors were just perfect, especially you have the fiery red, not just red, but fiery of Madeline Pryor's hair. You have the reddish tint of Limbo. I mean, you have the You have the purple when Carmen is changing shape.
Yep. Yeah. When we first get Gimmick. Yeah. In the book
Right.
there. Yep.
So yeah, the colors for me are great.
Yeah, I agree with you. The tones that are used in this book, while we have like that palette that's kind of earthy and everything, and kind of darker or whatever, it really shines in certain places, and I think that makes it feel, it really adds to the action and everything that's going on in this book. Like you said, when we're first introduced to Gimmick here, and we see her powers, and we get those purples and I don't know, all that color set that's around Gimmick, and then of course you're open to a couple of panels now with Gambit on the panel, and we get the really vibrant. I don't know what you call that color, but the pinkish reddish, like it's got like elements of that in it, but it's just synonymous with what Gambit has going on. And then we have a lot of damp, kind of darker, earthy tones or whatever, smoky tones and stuff like that throughout this book. But yeah, the colors work really, really well here. The colorist, Frank Martin, really works well with Jonas Scharf. Really good combination, and really good combination working with Steve Foxe on the story here. So I think a win all around. Our most important question that we ask at the end of these kind of reviews each time is this enough? Is this compelling enough to make you move on to issue number 2? Is this something you're going to let your local comic book shop know to add to your pull list, or does it not quite crack that? Where are you sitting, Bob?
The only reason, and I'm going to say yes, I'm going to continue to issue 2, but I'm going to have a caveat on that.
Okay.
The only reason why I wouldn't go to issue number 2 is just because this is, tying in with the Fall of X and all that, and just personally, I didn't read any of that.
Okay.
So I'm sure I'll be able to follow along, as this series moves forward.
Yeah.
But I may just have some when did this happen? When did that happen?
Yeah, it's always hard whenever you're kind of tied into an event. I get you to be convinced to stay on a book or not.
Right.
I completely agree with that. But yeah, I will say, while I've dipped in and out of Fall of X and all of House of X, Powers of X, all the X tie-ins and everything like that, I haven't followed anything super closely. But yeah, this is all day for me. I will absolutely be reading all the, following issues that come out of this series. It's so good. It's written so well. I love all the characters in it. I love being able to see Albert again, and I like seeing Gimmick involved. I want to know what's going to happen with her. Is she going to get absorbed into this X-Men team kind of and go really, really dark? She's just a kid kind of discovering her powers. Like what's going to happen to her? What's going to happen to Archangel? What's going to happen on that cliffhanger in the last panel that we didn't even really talk about? But that's okay. I think that we should leave some to the imagination. But yeah, this is really, really cool. This is a win all day for me. I will absolutely be continuing on to issue number 2.
This is just such a great creative team.
Oh yeah, the creative team is. I mean, you can't touch them. Again, Steve Foxe, a phenomenal writer. So yeah, absolutely a win from both of us. We will both be continuing on to issue number 2. And with that being said, we are going to take another quick break, and we will be right back. Welcome back to episode number 32 of the all-new, all-different #1 Comics podcast. Bob, let's talk about some books that are dropping next week in your local comic book shops. But first, hit them with the disclaimer.
These are only some of the books that are coming out, and these are subject to change because of life and
heat waves,
scheduling conflicts, and the world is on fire.
Yeah, it is.
So, beginning with DC, Dan's favorite, Batman, the Brave and the Bold, number 4.
Yes, we have Batman, the Brave and the Bold, number 4, with the first appearance of the Tempest.
From going to Marvel, we have Star Wars Dr. Aphra, number 35.
And what's happening in Dr. Aphra this week? It's Dark Droids crossover part 4.
Which, if you have not been reading Dr. Aphra this whole time, you need to do something with your life.
Get on it, Bob says.
Yes. Sticking with Marvel, we have Marvel Unleashed #1, and let me say, this sounds crazy.
Yeah, this sounds like a lot of fun. We've had books like this before. This one's got a team up of Throg, Redwing, Chewie the Flurkin, Lucky the Pizza Dog, and Bats the Ghost Dog. It's also got a first appearance of D-Dog, the canine version of Demolition Man.
Yes. Talk about a D-list villain.
Well, yeah, he looks
D-list
cool though.
character.
He's a really cool looking dog. I'll say.
Yeah, that is true.
Like his little mask.
So, sticking with Marvel and their love of everything facsimile, because DC has everything love of facsimile.
I mean, why not pump out a book that you don't have to get a creative team for, that you can get an extra like $10 for?
Why the hell not? Because especially this issue that's coming out this week.
Yep.
Is starting to get to the point where not everybody's going to be able to afford it.
Yeah, agreed.
But we have a facsimile edition of Amazing Spider-Man #300.
Yeah, that iconic cover there. Yeah, just wonderful.
Yes. So, sticking with Marvel, we have Invincible Iron Man #9.
The debut of a new stealth armor. The solicitation teases Tony Stark's potential. Wow. Let me start over again there. I'm drunk, I swear. The solicitation teases Tony Stark's potential claim to the title of Black King of the Hellfire Club.
Sebastian, you have a little competition, and he's got armor for days.
Yeah, well, they'll be all right.
Yes. Again, from Marvel, we have Jean Grey #1.
A 4-issue limited series tie-in to the Fall of X.
Sticking with Marvel, we have Fantastic Four Annual #1.
Another crossover. This has Contest of Chaos crossover. Ghost Rider versus the Human Torch. Who will win? They both have fiery things.
They both have fiery things, but I mean, Ghost Rider has the Penance Stare plus the fiery thing.
I was gonna say, I think he's got the leg up there.
Plus, he's got a cool fiery chain
and a motorcycle. Come on.
I know Johnny Storm can go supernova, but I mean, who can beat the fiery chain and the Penance Stare?
Only time will tell.
Sticking with Marvel, we have Immortal Thor #1.
Another immortal character, that's right. This is a new series by Al Ewing, the writer of Immortal Hulk. Has the first appearance of an elder god that I'm not going to try to say the name of, and that's it. Sure.
From IDW, we have Star Trek Strange New Worlds, the Scorpius Run #1. That is a title.
That's a title. It's a limited series that takes place after the second season finale of Star Trek Strange New Worlds.
Yes. And finally, from DC, we have Penguin #1.
This is the premiere issue of a series that begins after the events of Batman 125 through 127, where the Penguin was thought to have died.
Wow, so they're going way back.
Yeah, well, no comment. Those are some of the new books that are coming out next week. Bob, let's go ahead and figure out which book we're covering next week. That's right, kids. We have 3 books on the wheel. One from Marvel, one from DC, and one from IDW. We have Marvel Unleashed, the pet book that Bob just talked about, Addams Family, the Bodies issue, and the Penguin, the last book that we mentioned there. I'm going to go ahead and spin this wheel and see where it lands. Of course, you can't see or hear it, so I'll keep you
haven't
in the
done
loop
a
here.
DC book
It's
in a
spinning,
bit.
it's spinning. Bob, looks like for the 3rd time in a row, we're doing a Marvel book. It's Marvel Unleashed, #1, and Bob definitely gets to talk about his D-Dog. So.
I gotta say, I'm kind of looking forward to that one because I did not read this last run of Pet Avengers.
Oh, okay.
So I'm definitely going to be interested to read this one.
Yeah, this one should be a lot of fun. Hello and welcome back to the all-new, all-different #1 Comics podcast. We have a very, very special guest creator on the line right now. I'd like to welcome Danny Harrell. Danny, thank you so much for joining us today. Danny, of course, just penned the super amazing first issue that was released from Keenspot, Rebel Girl, or
girls. Or I don't know if I pronounced that correctly, if it's like Riot Girl and I'm supposed to leave out the I, or
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it's definitely a kind of a love letter to the Riot Girl
Oh
movement.
yeah.
Uh,
Well,
yeah,
hey, I'm with you on that, man. I love Riot Girl stuff. The Donnas and Bikini Kill, two of my favorite bands. So yeah, really really cool. Really excited
yeah.
about this book.
There's some Bikini Kill references and
Yeah.
some posters in the book of Bratmobile and like
Yes.
Heaven's Betsy and stuff like that. So,
Yeah, so very very cool stuff. uh Starting with that, I told you off air, I'm a musician too, and I'm really into music. I cut my teeth on punk and all of that in the, I guess, mid to late 90s, when I was a kid, and continued that until all the way up until now, where I'm like almost 40. I'm playing like an indie folk band, but I guess life
yeah,
happens, and you get older and you play softer stuff. But yeah,
yeah.
help walk me back a little bit. It seems like you're pretty into your Riot Girl references and everything. So uh where do you sit in that scene? How did that come up for you?
I've I've just always kind of been a fan. I guess uh,
Hmm.
through Bikini Kill, I got into them whenever I was younger, and then just kind of looked at other bands that were similar to their style of music, and just then started digging into books and looking at the zines and anything I could get my hands on. But it's all kind of the just the punk rock scene in general, and
Hmm.
that that's just one of the, I guess, groups and movements of punk and hardcore that I got into. And yeah, so whenever I was looking for something to use, I was wanting to tell some stories of a lot of the kind of funny stories from playing and playing out over the past 25 years in
Hmm.
bands. And I played in punk and garage, and then I played for 10 years. I played upright bass in a alt country rockabilly type band. And so just
That's
playing
awesome.
around in the Southeast, and uh, yeah, you run into all kinds of interesting people and end up with a lot of interesting stories. And I was trying to think of a way to tell those, but I guess telling a story of a rockabilly or country alt country band playing shows, that didn't seem as interesting to me as when I started trying to put the supernatural elements. And then I was like, why not make it about a all girl punk band in the South, because nothing seems like it would be more difficult to get over in the Southeast than a early '90s feminist punk movement band.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, and I like that you point that out, because yeah, you're absolutely correct. For our listening audience who's over on the West Coast, or more central or whatever, you don't really understand the struggles of, of living in the South. I'm in Florida, so I got you. But yeah, it it's hard. I mean, over there, there's a large movement, especially at that time period, like you said, the 90s and everything. You had all of these, grow out through, I don't know, the backlash to the hair metal and everything. You had punk becoming a little bit more accessible. You had grunge, of course, that everybody knows about, and these metal scenes and everything, these pockets that really grew out. And the general audience wasn't so accepting in the South. I'm completely with you on that. Like, a lot of times you would still hear things in the late 90s, like an all girl band, what, girls can't
yeah,
do that and everything, which sounds insane now, to think. But yeah, that was the thing that a lot of people probably don't realize. Very very backwards times. And um
and yeah, and the area that I'm from is pretty well known for music. It's got a really
mhm,
strong musical heritage in Muscle
mhm.
Shoals. It's, I mean, considered, all of our signs say, the hit recording capital of the world because of
Oh wow.
all the songs that were recorded in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And we
Hmm.
had a lot of really great musicians come through here. And I mean, Aretha Franklin, Rolling Stones, and I mean, just a ton of people. Uh,
Hmm.
W.C. Handy's from here. it's just a strong musical heritage. But growing up and playing in punk and playing, hardcore, and we had a pretty big in the late 90s, early 2000s, we had a pretty big hardcore punk scene around here. And but it still was, you're only going to draw people that are really into the music and looking for a place to go and see it, because there's not a lot of places around here that would even let you play whenever
Mm-hmm.
you're playing a style of music like that. And I kind of play up on that in a coming issue, the second issue of Rebel Girls, where we start to meet some of the different supernatural things. First issue, you get some ghosts. The second issue, we've got ghosts and zombies, and all of the zombies,
Cool.
instead of yelling for brains and things, they just request obnoxious song requests like Freebird and Wagon Wheel and things like that.
Man.
So
oh god,
the things they say are just things that were yelled at us to
Yep.
play whenever we were playing, trying to play in the bar scene. And yeah, it was lots of cool stories that can be told. So it's just
Well, now
weaving through
you're
them and figuring out, how to weave them in with everything, with the comic, and what we can get done in 21 or 22 page issues. So,
Mhm.
but we finished issue 2 and we're about halfway through issue 3. So we're rolling along.
Awesome.
And the first story arc is going to be 4 issues. I think it could go into 5, but I think we can wrap up the first story in 4. But I've got plans of where I want to go with the next few story arcs. And so we'll just see how it goes, see how sales do, and if we get to keep making it.
Yeah, and I'm hearing a really positive response in local comic book shops as well as online, on socials and everything. Everybody loves this book. I haven't heard, even a lukewarm response from anybody so far. You actually, I love that you said, people yelling, play Freebird. That speaks to my heart, because holy crap, I'm in Jacksonville, Florida. So, home of Leonard Skinner. So every time you play anywhere, somebody yells.
One thing that I did see in one review was that the reviewer pointed out that all 3 of the girls aren't named in the first issue. And so, yeah, that's coming. But my thought process, I guess, is that when you first hear a song that you really like, you learn the name of the song. And for my book, I kind of feel like that's the name of the comic, Rebel Girls. And then you learn the name of the band, which is mentioned in the first issue. It's the Alien She Devils. And
Yeah,
kind
I
of
love that name, by the way. Yeah.
Kind of a combination of a Bikini Kill song and my love of the character Red Sonja. So, but you learn the name of the band, and then once you become a fan, then you start digging in more and you start finding the names of each of the members. And so, issue 2, you'll get the names of them, and it's for anyone who's really into punk rock, you'll get some references just from their names, because
Very cool.
all of their first names are pulled from punk songs and their last names are pulled from famous female punk musicians. So be on the lookout for that in the next issue.
Awesome. Yeah, that's super cool. And I feel a little better now, just a little bit, that you told me that, sorry for the confusion that you weren't there for that signing. I would love to have a signature from her as well, because you probably can't see because my camera's so dark, but I do have her cover here. But yeah, I would have been very upset. Oh yeah, it's an amazing cover. I would have been very sad, even more so sad, if I missed out on you as well. So at least I didn't miss the signing with you. But yeah, I did miss her, which absolutely sucks. Yeah. Hopefully you guys. Look, here's my hope that you guys come around together and I'll get the book double signed. But yeah, very, very cool. I want to talk about. Of course, we're going to get into the book and your process and everything a little bit more, but you've got me on this punk rock tangent. And of course it's very close to me. So I've got to ask, what are some parallels in working, in punk music, and scripting a comic book, writing a comic book, coming up with initial ideas. Of course, with punk music, there's a very DIY ethic. That's, the foundations of punk. I
Yeah.
would assume that there's a good amount of this, especially producing like an indie comic as well, and then working with Keenspot publishing and everything. But yeah, I'd love to hear some of the parallels, some of the similarities, and some of the things that are wildly different.
Yeah, I kind of looked at making the comic kind of the same way that you look at making an album, and because I didn't really know, I've been a colorist and I've colored on a few different titles, but this is my first creator-owned title, and so I didn't really have a guidebook as far as what I needed to do to produce the book, but kind of the process that I went with was similar to making an album. I wanted to, get people together that I like to work with, people that I was a fan of. But whenever I wrote the script, and when I send the script over to Robert Ahmad, our interior artist, I gave him the script, but I wasn't really I didn't send him a lot of revisions to be done. And that was on purpose, because kind of with the same way with music, whenever you first hear the material and first start coming up with playing music, or with doing art in general, you tend to, I guess, you're the most creative whenever you first start working on it. So if I send him the script and he sends it back to me, and then I go through and try and find all the little things to nitpick and polish, and you always start to lose a little bit of, I guess, the fun of it. I mean, you always hear with music, you always hear people say like, oh, this band, their original, the first stuff they did, their old stuff was so much better. And it's not it's not because they were better musicians. It was because they were having fun. They didn't have a producer going in and having them recut things over and over and over, and to get everything just to perfection. Like, perfection is the enemy of creativity in a lot of ways. And so I did that with the cover artist. I just kind of gave them the general idea of the book, showed them a few of the pages, and just let them come up with what they wanted. I didn't send anything back to them once they sent it to me. I just wanted it to be, if they feel that it's done, what they come up with, then that's the way that I wanted the book to feel. And I just wanted the book, most importantly, just to feel fun, just not to feel like it's super polished, not to feel like it's, it's been done up, I guess, in a way that some of the larger publishers do, to where it kind of seems like there's a formula for everything, and you can kind of tell one issue to the next, even if it's different titles. It's like, okay, it's all kind of going by a certain, I don't know, I guess a certain formula. And so I just wanted to try and do something that was just fun, and that the fun that we're having making the book would translate to the people reading the book. Like, just that whenever you read it, you're like, maybe it's outrageous. Maybe it's, there's things in there that you're like, okay, this, how can we make sense of this? Well, you can try, but we're just having fun with it, and hoping that everybody else that's reading it can have fun as well. So, and and then with trying to get the book put out, and shopping it around to publishers and things, again, it was just the same idea as what I had done previously with music. You get the thing ready. I was getting everything ready to do an ash can, to basically be like an EP, to try and go out and start, promoting it that way. And once I got that ready, that's what I submitted to Keenspot, and they liked the idea. They liked the energy of the book. So they picked it up, and now we've just been rolling along with it, and hoping that it does well enough that we get to keep telling the stories, because there's a lot of stories that we have that we've been bouncing around. And I think there's a lot of fun stuff to come. And I think that in the second issue that Robert and I really clicked on whenever I sent him the script, the work that he's doing, and then I color the book, and starting with issue 2, I'm also lettering the book. So
Mhm.
I think that our styles really kind of clicked. And the first issue, I'm really proud of what we did on it, but the second issue is just on a different level. It's so much fun. I can't wait for
Yeah,
people to see it.
just turns it up to 11. Yeah. Uh,
Yeah.
I love that you bring up some of that, and how you know kind of relate it to making an album or promoting yourself as an artist or shopping the labels and everything, because something that a lot of people forget, or a lot of people don't know or whatever, is when you're a musician, a lot of times when you're writing things, if you're writing songs or lyrics, or a lot of people do the whole thing themselves. A lot of times you have a guy with an acoustic guitar who, or a lady, I'm sorry, or a person with an acoustic guitar, and, they sit down and write parts, and then write a harmony, and then write lyrics and everything, and kind of come to it with the band and say, okay, well, I was thinking this for the drums, I was thinking this for the bass or whatever. But a lot of times you miss out on that harmony of the entire band interpreting that piece, and then, layering it up, throwing their input in, and making it a unique piece of art versus one person's singular vision, like you did here. You trusted the people you were working with, and you said, hey, here's what I wrote, like, run with it. I want to see what you do to it. So it's a collaborative process, so we put out something together that we're all proud of. And really cool that you are able to script this, come up with the idea and write it and everything, and then go back and do colors on it. I really respect that. It's not something you see a lot of, unless somebody's doing the entire thing themselves. So I think that that's really cool that you have that foundation, and then you come back up for finishing touches as well. That's a pretty unique process, I think. Not something I'm seeing a lot of. So I really like and appreciate that. I think that that's a cool view to have on something. But yeah, I'd like the audience to know, the similarities that you pointed out, of being in a, group performing, or recording or whatever, writing, and what you're doing here with indie comics, can be very, very similar. Just a lot of the same aspects and everything. And then uh, to do it the way you did, where it's that pure collaboration, and you're putting a lot of faith into the people that you're working with, and not handing them back notes, and not saying, I didn't really like the backup vocals you put in that song at that part right there, or I didn't really like the how you put this in the background on this panel or whatever. Just kind of cool that it's this pure collaboration like that. So not something that you see a lot of.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been in bands where one person brings the music and
Hmm.
kind of directs everybody how they want them to play. But I've also been in, you know, more of the punk rock and the garage rock style bands where one person might come up with a guitar riff or have some vocals to start it out, but everybody is there, and the songs, they kind of come together as one with everybody. Everybody's there, and they're contributing to the actual writing process of the music. With,
Hmm.
you have someone writing the bass line, that if you had a guitar player saying, I want you to play this bass line this certain way, well, that might not really fit the bass player's style. And
Yep.
the bass player may have a different style, that you could have a completely different sounding song if you're, bassist and your drummer, if they, are allowed to just kind of come up with their own thing. I guess they know how to play the music, just like the artists that I've worked with. You know, they're all extremely talented, and have, all had a lot of really great work put out into the world. There's no reason for me to try and tell them exactly what to do. It's more
Hmm.
like, this is the script. This is what I came up with. Let's see your interpretation of it, so that we can put everybody's interpretation together and kind of get this kind of unique feeling comic that, I don't know. It's I just wanted it to feel, I guess, not as stuffy
Hmm.
as some of the other comics that I've read, recently. And I read a lot of comics, and so, I've just always been a fan, and uh, I've been reading comics since I could read, and collecting comics, just as long. And so, yeah, there's a lot of, I guess, unintentional influences in the book and with the writing, and things that I didn't really think about as being
Hmm.
influences that, other people have kind of pointed out. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun. It's been a really cool process, and yeah, I'm looking forward to doing more with everybody that's on the team.
Yeah, and it's a cool, unique perspective of a story. Now, I'm gonna walk you back for a second and tell you, like, and this comes from someone, I'm a nobody. I'm just a dude who reads comics, who decided to put up a podcast with my friend, and him and I just talk about comics. So I don't work in the comic book world, or anything like that. But uh, I I love writing. I've written, my whole childhood and adult life and everything. I'm just, sadly, I'm not as good as, you guys out there who are able to put stuff out, but that's okay. The world needs fans too. So that's where I am. But, you know, uh, I really love using a band in a comic book. I think that it's a wonderful avenue to go down. A lot of times, comics are one or the other. It's either focused around a central character, your protagonist or whatever, or it's focused on like a team of characters. You have your Justice League, your X-Men, all that stuff, and it's fun to work with those teams because you have a lot of different voices that can tell a story and a lot of different perspectives and all of that, and to use the band for that purpose. I love my first screenplay that I wrote was written around a band. It was about a band of like doom metal musicians who go play guerrilla shows out in the woods, and chaos ensues and everything, and it was a lot of fun. But it was very comforting for me to be able to write that way, to take that as something. You look at something like Josie and the Pussycats, something that's a comic book and a movie, and I don't know, probably like a cartoon from the 70s or 60s or something also, but it works really well. Jim and the Holograms, like a lot of these things where we use bands as the team, just a really cool perspective of something there's not a lot of out there. So I appreciate
Yeah,
that you've added to that, and put it out in the zeitgeist right now.
yeah. And I've always really loved like the ensemble comics. Like I'm a
Hmm.
big Doom Patrol fan.
Oh yeah.
I like the Invisibles. I like, that was
Hmm.
great. Runaways was another one that was a lot of fun.
Oh man, Runaways, amazing,
Yeah,
amazing book.
yeah, and another music comic that I saw that came out last year that was pretty interesting was a series called Heavy Metal Drummer, and
Yes. Oh
it's
man, some amazing art in
definitely
that.
worth
Yeah.
checking out. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a lot of fun. But yeah, I don't know. I like the idea of telling stories where you may have one main character that's more. I guess their voice is more prominent than the others,
Hmm.
but I like to have that avenue to just tell from different perspectives. Like in Rebel Girls, we've got the singer is a diehard punk musician that
Hmm.
you can tell that, and then the drummer is more of a athletic, sporty type, and then the bassist is more, I would say, more hippie-ish,
Yep.
but they all kind of come together with just a love of playing music and a strange ability to be able to conjure ghosts through music and resurrect the dead. So
Yep.
yeah, just
Yeah, and
normal everyday band stuff.
yeah, stuff that happens out there. Um,
Yeah.
that brings me to my next question. Then I have to know, when you pitch this to Keenspot or whatever. I'm not sure how the process took place. I didn't know if you had like a completed issue that you brought to them, or if you did like your elevator pitch and then started from there. But let's just say, for the sake of saying, you had to, I don't know, throw out your log line or elevator pitch to Keenspot. What was that, if you recall?
Well, whenever I've reached out to them, I had the first 6 pages of the book. I had the inks and the colors done. They weren't lettered, but
Hmm.
when I reached out to them, I sent them the first 6 pages. I sent them the script, and then just the idea that the story follows three teenage punk rock girls that are playing music and trying to get going in music in Northwest Alabama, and that they have the ability to conjure ghosts and resurrect the dead. And they kind of don't, I guess, notice that they have it as much because they've seen the ghost around for so long. No one believes them. Like, they've been seeing them since they're kids. You talk about it and people just think you're crazy and cast out to the side. But that they're playing music, and that their powers come from the devil who set this whole plan in motion. It was a kind of half-cocked idea of how to bring about the apocalypse by having a band play, and each show they're resurrecting more of the dead that's then turning more of the living into the dead, and to eventually overthrow everything. And she sends one of her minions in the form of a CD record executive who's trying to get them to sign with his label to be able to push them to market them to a much wider audience, and they want nothing to do with it. And just in general, it's not a very good plan on Satan's part. It's just not a very doable plan. And you have these three girls who are, trying to get their music over in a region of the world that isn't really going to be as accepting to a punk band. And then you have this guy who is sent to try and convince them to sign, that he's sent to make sure that the devil's plan is carried out and can bring about the apocalypse, when he also knows that he's not going to be able to make that happen. There's a good chance they're not going to get their music over, that there's also a good chance for him that he's not going to be able to wrangle these three very, very vocal critics of his that want nothing to do with him. So it's kind of a lose-lose for everyone. And then we just kind of see where it goes from there. And Keenspot liked the idea. They, it didn't take long for them to, send me some information about, how they go about publishing their comics, the deal that they have. And we were just able to work it out. And from that point, we knocked out the first issue, and then immediately went into the second, and we plan to keep going as long as I can afford to keep putting them out. So if people are buying the comics, then we're gonna keep going as long as we can.
Yeah, and I strongly hope, but I don't think you'll have much to worry about there. Like I said, there's a good amount of buzz for this. I try to stay, very, very current on all the socials and what's going on with comics, and especially the indie comic scene. And this is being brought up quite a bit. So it's held in high regard. A lot of people are loving this. Again, no negative reaction whatsoever that I'm hearing of. How about your creative team? I haven't gone into yet how they were selected. Did you gather Robert and Matt together with you? Were they?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Whenever I first started thinking about the idea for the book, I had a kind of a specific, a specific style that I wanted to go for. And I had read Robert, I'd seen his work in a series that he did called Headless for Scout Comics. And
I remember Headless, yeah.
I just loved the way that comic looked. I loved the style that he was doing. And honestly, whenever I looked at it, I was like, I really would like to color this guy's work. And so I reached out to him. I, just found him online, reached out to him, asked if he would be interested. I sent him the script and he dug it. So we started working on it from there. And then with Matt, my buddy Mike Ruth, who he's the series artist on a series called Dodge by Matt Nixon, and he's done covers for everything: Swamp Thing, TMNT, The Last Ronin. He was with Aftershock for a while, doing a lot of their happy hour covers. Just a lot of cool stuff. But
awesome.
I worked with him on doing, we kind of tag teamed some flashback scenes in issue 3 of Dodge on the colors. He had done the inks, and then I went in and did the flat color, kind of the color selections, and then he came in and finished up with all of the highlights and shadows, because he has a very specific look that he likes to go for on all of his work. And you can, every time that or at least every time I see one of his pieces, it's very, very clear that it's a Mike Ruth piece. But Matt was the letterer on Dodge, and whenever I first started working on the book, I knew several people who could do the interiors, and I had a lot of friends that I knew that I could get to do covers and everything, but I didn't really know many letterers. And so he put me in touch with Matt, and Matt did just a fantastic job on issue 1. And it turned out great. I really love the way that Matt does sound effects, and that was a big part of who I wanted to do the lettering on this first issue. I wanted somebody who was really great with sound effects, because it's a series mostly based around music. It's rooted in music. You want somebody that can kind of portray that, and Robert does a really great job. You can look at the panels, and it's almost like you can hear what's going on without any kind of, without the text, without the script. Just looking at his work, you can kind of get a feel for what's going on. He's a fantastic storyteller. And so whenever I got up with Matt to do the lettering, I talked to him about how I wanted, sound effects. I wanted that to be throughout the book, and he just nailed it, and it's fantastic to see. And it's been awesome to see the whole thing come together. It's been a process. It's been a learning experience for me, going from only ever really doing color to kind of trying to head a project like this and do a creator-owned project, and trying to get what little marketing that I can get out, and get it out on social media. And so sorry, my dog's going crazy.
Oh, you're fine. Well, luckily, like I told you at the head of this, I'm actually, recording remotely right now. I'm not in my studio, but I've got 2 dogs there, and they interrupt every podcast. So you don't hear mine this time. You hear yours, but very completely understood. It's a very cool book. It's the way that everybody works together in harmony, just it's very complementary of one another. Again, you're scripting and coloring, so you're able to lay that foundation, add the finishing touches. Robert's wonderful at his depiction of all the characters and the scenery and everything that's going on there. It's just got a really wonderful tone and vibe to it, and it's very vibrant for like a dark story. It's got a great contrast. It looks wonderful, and Matt in there too, with the lettering. Just everybody's working very, very well together, so it's a wonderful book. And I know you said that you're about 4 issues for this first volume or story arc, and possibly 5 if you have to stretch it out to one more. You definitely can, but and I know you said you have ideas for stories in the future with the same with Rebel Girls here. Now, is there any other stories you're sitting on? Is there anything else that you want to tell? And if it's too far out in the future, if it needs to be under wraps or whatever, feel free to give me the nod, and I'll move to the next question. But
now I've got one script written for and it's kind of a backup story for a character in Rebel Girls that is going to be introduced in issue 3 and play a big part in issue 3 and 4 and this first story and beyond. And the script for that is done. And Becca Kinsey, who did a cover for us on this first issue, I've been talking with her about possibly doing the interiors on it, and just to give it a different feel, because it's kind of a flashback more of a 1920s Alabama story with about a witch. So yeah,
Oh
it's
man, that sounds awesome. Yeah.
needs to have a little bit of a different feel to it, and
Yeah.
so we've talked about that. That's something that hopefully we'll be able to do later this year, early next year, but
Hmm.
it's not something that that we're actively working on right now. It's just a script that I've written while I've been doing Rebel Girls. Just
Hmm.
there's a lot of characters coming in Rebel Girls that can't really tell all of the stories in 4 issues and the
Yep.
backstories in 4 issues.
Yeah.
And
And
then
I,
yeah,
sorry, go ahead.
I colored recently. I colored another series for Keenspot called Jungle Drama. That's
Hmm.
kind of a Archie, more Archie style feeling, and it's an all ages comic. And
Hmm.
Rebel Girls is not.
Yeah.
It's got lots of flowery language, but yeah, the Jungle Drama will be out. It's going to be out in October, the week before Rebel Girls issue 2 comes out. So it's pretty
Awesome.
exciting month coming up.
Yeah, I saw that solicited. And just to, step back really quick, you talk about, some of the language in the book, which obviously I'm fine with, but I love the part that you wrote in about I can't remember off the top of my head which character it is, but I remember a character going to her locker and sluts written on it, and she, has slut written on her shirt, and she gets in trouble at school, and she's like, well, it wasn't a problem when it was written on my locker. And I love that. I don't know if that comes from any, personal experience, or I mean, not about you obviously, but like, or probably, but maybe, but
Maybe.
yeah. No, but maybe something that was around you, or maybe something that you had encountered in your life. There really is a lot of times that double standard that you hear at school and in your youth and everything, and in these institutions where you know, maybe somebody gets in trouble for something that somebody else probably should have gotten in trouble for. And I just love that you bring that up into the comic, because it makes the world feel lived in. It makes it feel like real life experiences that, some of us, readers have probably encountered in life.
Yeah. That kind of comes from I had read a book, and I can't think of the name of it, but it was just a book about the Riot Girl movement, and
Hmm.
a lot of the bands in the early days of going into crowds that were kind of what Black Flag and like Social Distortion and bands like that. The crowds for them where they were pretty rough crowds,
Hmm.
and you
Yep.
have bands like Bikini Kill coming in, and the whole girls to the front thing, and they got a lot of flack. And there was in the book that I was reading, they were talking about Kathleen Hanna from Bikini Kill, and
Yep.
how the media, when they started getting a little bit of traction, the media started talking about that she was a stripper at one point, and
Hmm.
whenever they were trying to get money to fix their van to go out on tour, and things like that. That I just kind of I wanted to have something in the book that kind of played up on that, and you know I've read that, and then I've watched videos of Bikini Kill and other bands, and there was I can't remember if it was Bikini Kill or not, but one of the musicians just had slut written on her shirt, and
Hmm. Hmm.
like you knew that she had been called that, but she was kind of, I guess, throwing it back in their face. And so I wanted
Yep.
to just throw something in there kind of like that. It's also just the kind of the punk rock attitude of the girls in the story that I wanted to portray, that they're not going to take crap off of anybody. So
Yep. Yeah, and again, I love that kind of thing. Of course, you cite Bikini Kill. They're a huge proponent of that kind of thing. But I circle
yeah.
back to the Donnas a lot. I love to talk about the Donnas anytime that I can. Anybody who doesn't listen to the Donnas or hasn't, like, you're really missing out. Like, they're not a traditional punk band by any means. They're they veer off into Kiss worship and like rock
Yeah.
and stuff like that. Of course, like, they have a little niche created for them. But the Donnas are very big and being like a pop rock band, and then and talking about how many guys they've slept with and stuff, where you hear like a male fronted band talk about something like that and it's cool, but then you hear a female fronted band and it's like, oh well, you're a whore or whatever, and it's like, why the double standard? Of course,
Yeah.
let her do her thing. If that's what she wants to do, I mean, she's not bothering you, just like if that's what a guy wants to do. And it's like, yeah, it's very interesting to bring those topics up. And the reason that I say that is, we live in that world. We came from, punk. We've been around it a lot. We've been around Riot Girl movement and stuff like that. The mainstream public hasn't, so they don't know those things. To them, you know, their definition of, like a young girl at school or something means one thing, and to us it means something else. So yeah, I love that that's got that empowerment there, and that contrast to what a lot of people probably experience. I think that that's really, really cool. I gotta ask you this question because obviously it's pretty important to the book and pretty important to you as a creator and everything. But and then being a big musician and all of that. A lot of writers, especially lately, are talking about what they listen to when they create, when they write, when they script things. A lot of people are even putting in like, little notes or QR codes in the books that are like, hey, scan this and listen to what this character was listening to when this happened or whatever. Do you have a soundtrack that you're playing when you're writing? Is there, things that are, you're using as like influence when you're writing, or just, that?
For the writing part,
Hmm.
for writing, I usually don't have anything playing, but for coloring,
Hmm.
I always have something playing, and I kind
Yep.
of feel like I might maybe just get a different feel to the book. Maybe it's just the mood that I'm in when I'm listening to certain artists. Like
Hmm.
if I'm listening to, Bikini Kill or Against Me, or, someone like that, that's more aggressive. I kind of feel like I get a different look with the colors than I do if I'm
Yep.
listening to, Waylon or, Hank Williams or something.
Yep.
So it's I'm kind of all over the spectrum with what I listen to while I'm working on different things. And I might have, Wu Tang on, or I might have, punk or Gaslight Anthem or the Yeah
Hmm.
Yeah Yeahs. Like, just it could be anything, but I always have to have something whenever I'm coloring. It's hard for me to focus, and it's partly because of ADHD, but it's also just I pretty much always have music going in earbuds whenever I'm working.
Yep. Yeah, and is there any chance that, of course, silly long shot question here. Any chance, you ever throw out like a Rebel Girls, like a original EP or something, just something to complement the book out there for some of the hardcore fans?
Yeah, that would be interesting. It would be yeah, kind of tough for me to do it,
Well, sure.
but but yeah, that would be interesting. I've had a couple of requests from people who have uh, messaged me asking if we were going to do like Alien She Devils tour shirts or something, and
Yeah.
I haven't really thought that far ahead. Just trying to get the comic out. So
Yep.
yeah,
Hmm.
but
Well, it's lucky that you
yeah,
have a
that would be
publisher.
interesting.
Yeah, and you're lucky you got a publisher and everything like that. You didn't have to go the Kickstarter route, but I could just imagine some of those stretch goals, like tour
Yeah,
shirts, other merch related to the band and everything. So really, really cool. Well, look,
yeah.
I don't want to take a whole bunch of your time. I've had you on here for a bit, and I really appreciate it, and it's been a lot of fun. But I definitely, have to ask. You said you've got 4 to 5 issues in this first story arc coming. I I always like to point out to everybody, who's listening, make sure that you run to your local comic book shop. If you don't already have a copy of Rebel Girls #1, make sure you get on that, rectify that immediately. But hopefully, maybe there's still some available through Diamond or Penguin House or whoever the actual distributor is. and make sure
Yeah,
that you guys.
there's some available through Keenspot shop, and
Good. Okay.
I know
So
that
direct from the publisher.
some of the shops that carried the book have sold out of it, but I
Yes.
know
Yes.
that some of
Definitely mine.
the larger online shops, most of them still have it. Like places like My Comic Shop in
Okay.
Midtown, a lot of them still have copies of it, but I know some of the smaller ones are selling out. And but Keenspot does have some. There's not a lot of them that they have. We didn't
Hmm.
overprint the first issue because honestly, we didn't know if it was gonna sell any more than what was ordered through Diamond. So we didn't
Yep.
want to print a lot of them and have that cost and then just be sitting on them for a long time. So
Yeah.
yeah, maybe if there's demand, maybe we'll be able to do a second printing of issue 1 at some point. But
Hmm.
if not, there's still plenty of copies out on a lot of these sites to be picked up. And hopefully after the first 4 issues, if we can wrap up the first story in 4, we'll have a trade paperback at some
Hmm.
point. But all of that's going to be up in the air, just depending on sales. People actually get out to their comic shops and pick it up, but definitely request it at your local shop and buy from them, because that's what you want to keep the local shops going. They're kind of going away. A lot of them
Hmm.
are having to close down. COVID, whenever that happened, that wiped out a lot of the local shops. We don't have one
Yep.
in our town anymore, and
Ah.
it stinks. It's you really want to go. Like, buying comics online is one thing, and
Hmm.
you get to get them, read them, and everything, and it's great. But actually going and hanging out in the comic shop is just it's something kind of like going to a local video store was. It's kind of
Yep.
the last type of thing like that you can do. There's not a lot of places where you can go. Like, people don't get out and go and rent movies and hang out in a video store and chat with other people. Or there's not a lot of music stores left, and most of the music stores and record shops around here have closed down. And that's something that for me that I miss, is going out and hanging out and just talking to the people there, just running into other fans and getting to talk about at a comic shop, just different titles that they're reading. And just
Hmm.
browsing around on the shelves and seeing something that's got a cool cover or cool interior art, and you just pick it up, and kind of opens you up to a whole new series of comics. So yeah, definitely try and pick it up from a local shop, because we want to keep them around as long as we possibly can, because they're so much fun to go and hang out in.
Yeah, and that's what this is all about. Comics are, at least for me, and sounds like for you, Danny, like all about community. And of course, you can have an online community. You can go to, message boards, if those are still a thing. I don't know, but like you can go to Reddit
Yeah.
or socials or whatever and talk about comics. And while that's cool, like Danny said, you're missing out on a lot, because a lot of times you go in with an agenda. Well, you're not really browsing and just adding things to your cart because the cover looks cool or whatever. Now you're reading synopsis. Now you're looking at creators, things that don't matter to you as much as whenever you walk into a shop and you're like, that's a badass cover and the name sounds cool. Well, I'm picking it up. So a lot of times you're missing out on that by missing out on that community of the local comic book shop. So like Danny said, like very, very important that we're supporting local comic book shops, especially right now, especially after everybody dealt with what they dealt with all the shutdowns with COVID and all of that. But yes, like Danny was saying, go to your local comic book shop. Make sure that you've got Rebel Girls on your pull list. Make sure that you are letting your local comic book shops know to order you, uh, the later issues, before FOC. Make sure that those are ending up at your local comic book shops. Make sure, let them know that you want a copy of issue number 1, so they can, dig back and order from Diamond or whoever is distributing those books. But make sure that you're getting the request out there to your local comic book shop. That way, we continue to get great issues of Rebel Girls from Keenspot, because Danny's got a whole bunch more stuff planned out. And I know for one, I want to read them, and I know you guys do too. So make sure we're requesting those. Very, very important. Danny, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to talk to me. It's been super awesome. Again, like I really appreciate the fact that we could, sit here and talk about music and the punk scene a little bit. You're totally speaking my language whenever you start talking about video stores. I'm a veteran assistant manager from Blockbuster from back in the day, so I could go back and forth on that for hours, but I won't bore you with that. But yeah, man, it's been really awesome talking to you. I really appreciate it. The book is wonderful, and thank you so much for taking out the time to talk to me today.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much, and hopefully we'll talk again soon.
For sure, man. Thanks.
Thank you.
And that's it, kids. It's been real, and it's been fun, and it's been real fun. But Bob and I gotta go. As always, you can check us out on social media of your choice. We are at Instagram at ANAD_1 Comics Podcast. You can check us out on Twitter or X or whatever the hell that's called at ANADNO Comic Pod. We are also on TikTok at ANAD1 Comics Pod, and on YouTube under the Comic Book Channel. This and every single week, as usual, you can be entered in our giveaway to win a free copy of the book that we covered this week, that being Dark X-Men #1. All you've got to do is go on social media of your choice and use our hashtag AllNewAllDifferentNation, and you will get your very own copy of this book sent to your address completely free. And hey, if you want Bob to sign the back cover, he'll do that too.
I'll do it.
See? Don't test us, kids. We'll see you next time.